All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. Super excited to have this guest on because this is something I get asked about at least 3 to 4 times a day. And I finally can just say, talk to Mark Little. Everyone coming my way, talk to Mark Little. So I want to introduce Mark quick and give you a little bit of backstory. Mark has actually become a client of mine on the Done For You LinkedIn lead generation. And what's so unique about Mark, and the reason I tried to send all these different individuals to Mark, is he specializes in client acquisition and lead generation strategy for financial advisors. And he's been doing it for over 40 years. And Mark is a financial advisor. And Mark has this incredible story, which I don't want to spoil. But spoiler alert, if you listen to this, even if you're not in financial advising, you can tell your financial advisor to do what Mark's telling you. Tell them to listen to Mark's stuff. And also, I think there's a lot of lessons in here as well, just for anyone in a client-based kind of service. So without further ado, Mark Little, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, glad to be here. My pleasure.
All right, we got a lot to unpack because what I love about Mark and what I love about your story is, you, and we're going to go back to the beginning, but over 40 years, you've really developed this style where you were able to kind of, the highlights here for people, and why should I listen to Mark Little? He was able to kind of generate this endless stream of client referrals for his financial, advisory consulting space, 5x his yearly revenue, reduce his workload just a crazy amount, and it's all using approaches that 99% of sales trainers and gurus would never advise. So there's a lot to unpack here, Mark, and I guess I'd like to start with kind of going back to the beginning. Like, take me through the early days when you started here in the financial advising space, and kind of what you ran into as far as obstacles, and where this unique approach kind of developed for you.
Well, it wasn't easy. At about 3 stages in my career, I was told by people more successful than me that I didn't have what it takes, and that what was I even thinking getting into this business? Because I'm voted least likely to succeed. But when the way I got into being financial advisor and was starts when I was a kid. I was the nerdy kid sitting at the dining room table, reading the Wall Street Journal and Barron's and tracking investments. And at 12 years old, I was already managing our family's investments. And so I knew what I enjoyed doing, and I knew I wanted to do this as a career. I just didn't really understand how the industry worked. So when I got out of college, I got hired by a Wall Street-based firm, and foolishly thought, well, they're hiring me to do wealth management, whatever that means, and so they're going to teach me how to manage wealth. Made sense to 23-year-old Mark, and it didn't end up being that at all. So when you're hired with a Wall Street-based investment firm, and they tell you that we're going to put you on the front lines providing wealth management to individuals and families, what they should be saying, but didn't say, was it's a sales job. You need to go out there, you need to acquire clients. And when I said, what about the managing the wealth part? What about the wealth management part? And they said, oh, don't worry about that. Just when a family comes in, just kick it up to New York. We've got the team in place. And so literally it was sales. Now, the reason it was a problem for me, John, was the part that I didn't mention is I'm an introvert. And I had call reluctance. Now, this was April 28th of 1981, and things are not done this way as much today. But in 1981, what this meant was when you show up on your first day of work at the Wall Street-based firm, they just throw you on the phone. They hand you a piece of paper and said, "Hey, here's your script. I want you to call this wealthy neighborhood and interrupt everyone's dinner, and go find clients. Go." And so I realized in the first week that I had made a grave error in career choice. That I thought I was going to be managing wealth for affluent families, when in actuality, I had to go out and find clients. And that was pretty much the entire job. So there I was in a position where, my branch manager in the office that I built my business in South Texas, he would bring me in every week. It was like a kind of like going to church every week. I'd have the weekly meeting with my branch manager, and every week he'd say, "You're not acquiring clients at the minimum standard that this firm requires, so we're going to have to let you go." And I'm like, no, 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 no. I will figure this out. I just give me time. And literally every week I had to beg for another week. And this was for about a year until I cracked the code and I figured out how to acquire clients. But anyway, least likely to succeed. That's basically me.
Wow. Well, I love this story because I know so many people can relate, whether you're a financial advisor like Mark, you're a coach, you're a consultant, small business owner, there are a lot of people that are introverts and don't have that desire to go out and sell because you hear the word sell and you feel like, oh, sleazy, pushy, I don't like that. And it is an industry where I see financial advisors door knocking in my neighborhood, and you can tell these poor guys are just so uncomfortable. It's like cold calling and like just all these tactics. So obviously you realized early on, like, you love managing the money, you love the clients, you're really good at it, it's a passion. You hate sales, you hate traditional sales, you hate all the training they're putting you through and the cold calling and spammy, whatever. So what cracks the code? What changes things for you? How do you develop kind of this approach that has worked out so well?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a mental process, but I knew one thing. The thing that if you're listening to this and you're an extrovert, a lot of extroverts think introverts don't like people. That's not true. Introverts love people typically, and I'm just describing myself, but I like people I know. So if you were to say, Mark, do you like interacting with your friends and people that you care about? Like, go grab lunch or go grab coffee with someone that you know or like. I love that, and I can hang out all day with friends. What I don't like is being put in situations with people that I don't know where I've got to do like idle chit chat, or, I've got to tap dance and carry on some conversation with a person that I don't know about what, I don't know. The whole thing was contrived. So what I figured out very early on was it was a series of limiting beliefs that I had to knock down. So I declared war on the fact that, I know I need to get out there and meet people. But how will an introvert who doesn't like idle chit chat with strangers meet people? And what I figured out was that the people that I know could introduce me to the people that they know. And so I just got really, really good. I mastered the technique of getting the people I know to introduce me to the people that I don't know. Now, it's kind of like a series of dominoes that are, because then you crack that code and now you know a lot of people, but they don't meet the ideal client profile. So in my case, back in the 80s, I was a just recently graduated broke college kid, now working at a Wall Street based firm. But I thought, okay, I've cracked the code. I'm getting people I know to introduce me to people that I don't know. I'm starting to develop relationships with them. I enjoy meeting with them, these new friends and everything. The problem is they're all broke college kids just like me. It's like no clients here. And then I figured this is a key, and this is true in almost every industry, that when I sat down and I contemplated the ideal client profile, or the profile of the client that I was actually seeking, yes, the people that I know, my friends, they were like me, just young professionals, upwardly mobile, but they couldn't invest with me at the level that I needed to keep my job. But here's the thing. I figured out everyone's a referral source. Everyone's a referral source in this way. They may not know a lot of people who meet my client profile, but once I figured out that everybody that I know knows at least one person who meets my profile, well, that's all I needed to know, because then I set about with the people that I know to make sure that literally everyone in my orbit knows what I do and what makes me different and better than everyone else who does what I do. So I got really good at subliminally training all my friends and acquaintances on understanding what I do and what makes me different. Now, I did not do that in a salesy way. I kind of waited until, like, let's say you and I go out and grab coffee. And as an introvert, I'm quiet. I go, John, how are you doing? And you say, oh, I'm doing fine. I go, well, what's been going on with you? And you say, oh, the family and I are planning a trip and blah, blah. You know, start telling stories. And as an introvert, I'm quiet. I'm just enjoying the story. I'm listening intently. And I might ask an open-ended question like, really? What kind of trip? Where are y'all going? But just designed to keep you talking. And what happens, John, is at some point, and I'm going to say pretty quick, like within 5 minutes, it will occur to you, I'm doing all the talking here, and it's subliminal. And you'll say, okay, enough about me. What's going on with you, Mark? And in that moment, I'm prepared with about 1.5 or 2 minute little story with a beginning, a middle, and an end of a client that I have helped. Somebody that came in with a significant financial issue, and they were losing sleep over this problem. And I kind of explained, we sat down, we sorted it out, and they took my advice, and now they live happily ever after. So imagine if I'm meeting with you, John, and you and I meet every 3 or 4 months. We go grab coffee to catch up or something. But every single time we meet, at the point where you look at me and say, Mark, what's going on with you, Mark? I tell a little 1.5 to 2.5 minute client story that really serves only one purpose. It's that when you're out in the wild, John, and you're talking with your friends, when I'm not around, if somebody in their life has a significant financial issue, I have scripted them because the mind is wired to remember stories. So I tell stories, and it's amazing how when the time comes, literally everyone in my orbit, all my friends, are skilled at being able to describe me, what I do, and what makes me different and better.
That is just brilliant. Like, wow. Okay, so like pause right there, bookmark the conversation, because there's so much to unpack even in that simple approach. And this is why I love Mark. You have there's like tip the iceberg with Mark, by the way. But there's so much good stuff in here. One is the whole idea of knowing how to handle people and the social reciprocity. And everyone's favorite topic on earth is themselves. So if you get me talking about myself, Mark, you're the greatest friend. This is the best conversation ever. Why? Because I'm talking about myself, which I love. But then, of course, the reciprocity is, why should I ask you how you're doing? And I love the fact, I was going to ask you before you started this, like, well, how do you go about asking for referrals without feeling pushy, sleazy, weird, and being like, well, actually, I need some clients. Do you know anybody? Like, you got anybody that wants to invest? Or, and I love the fact that you're able to, in a kind of humble way, just be like, yeah, a really fun thing that happened with me recently was I was able to help this dentist get this situation figured out with his taxes, blah, blah, blah. And like, but the fact that you can explain what you do and how you help someone in a specific story, and the key word is story, because then they encode it and remember it. And then when they run into somebody who has a similar problem, say it's related to taxes, oh, you should talk to my buddy Mark. He was just telling me a story about how he helped a dentist. And so I can see how the dominoes kind of turn. I love this. What I want to ask next is like, why don't more, I mean, obviously you figured this out, but why don't more advisors do this? Like, why haven't the ones that haven't talked to you anyway don't know about this? So like, why do you not see more advisors take, because you hear a lot of people talking about referrals. And I think it's key because obviously it's really hard to approach a stranger and say, hey, trust me with all your money. So referrals work great, but why don't more do kind of your approach, do you think?
I don't know. Actually, for about 20 years, I thought every financial advisor eventually cracked the code, figured this out, and did it this way. And it was actually one of my business coaches about 25 years ago where I was telling him, well, any advisor that's been in the business 10 years, they figure all this out, and that this is how they acquire clients. And my business coach looked at me like I was crazy. He goes, no, they don't. No, they don't. They do other things. They do seminars, or they have client dinners. They have some shortcut, that they think's going to acquire clients, and it's not working well, or it is working well, but it's salesy. And so I don't know the answer to your question. All I know is for someone that is like me, who's rejected sales tactics, sales training, appointment closing, any kind of closing techniques. Like, I just rejected that in the first 6 months of being in this job. And I told my firm, I am not doing any manipulative sales tactics. And so then what do you do? And so, frankly, it was out of panic attacks that I figured out, everyone's a referral source, and I just got to get out there and have enough momentum. I should be meeting with 20 people a week just to catch up with them. And, if I do that, I just am praying that somebody will come to me with a significant financial issue. And there is more to the process. And that's the other thing is, once you have told everyone in your orbit, like every time you meet with them, you tell a little story of someone where the client is the hero. So in my little stories, I'm not the hero. The client's the hero. They had this problem, and it's like, we started noodling this together, and we put together a plan, and they fixed it and lived happily ever after. So the client's the hero. And then I can't tell you how many advisors listen to me talking like this, and they say, yeah, I have a lot of friends. I meet with them regularly. None of them turn into clients. Like, where's the magic there? And that's part of the process that I teach is you can't miss any opportunities. So when you're talking with a friend and they've heard you say 20 times over the years, I help people with a significant financial issue, and I'm better than others in town at this. I'm better than everyone in town at that. Then they'll either have a situation themselves, or they'll know someone they care about. Why aren't advisors noticing this in their routine meetings with friends? And it's because they miss opportunities all the time. Somebody could say something as subtle and oblique as, like, I might ask them, in my little story, I might wrap up the story for this time we are catching up, and I might say, and the whole thing boiled down to these two married people just were not on the same page financially. Like, they did not have an agreement between them as a married couple about the money. And then I would say, have you ever known a couple that's not seeing eye to eye with their spouse on money? And they'd go, oh yeah, me, and then they'll go, ha 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 ha, and then change the subject. Nice weather we're having. So the question is, does the advisor have the skill to go back, to stop the conversation, go back and say, well, you said that you are dealing with this yourself? That sounds like a significant financial issue, is it? And they say, yes, it is. I have a process for couples in that situation, and be happy to sit down with you all if that's something you'd like to do. So that's not a close. That's more of a question, like, tell me more about this situation. And what the advisors don't do, it's not even how to handle that. It's that they don't, the opportunity where somebody is actually sending out a lifeline, like, yes, I need help. It goes over the head of the advisor. They just miss it completely, and they just oh yeah, what spouse doesn't argue with their spouse over money? And it's ha 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 ha. And then they talk about, the football game last weekend. And so you cannot miss any opportunities. And when you listen carefully to your friends and acquaintances, just when you're catching up with them, they give reference to significant financial issues more than you realize. And if you get skilled at never missing that opportunity, they may be asking you for help, they may not be asking you for help, but do you have the skill to slow things down and find out?
Oh man, that's just brilliant. You're channeling my inner Dale Carnegie right now. I'm hearing his quotes in my head as you're talking. One is like, your ability to handle people makes you rich. And the other one that I think about too is Carnegie says, no one's interested in buying anything from you. What we are eternally interested in is solving our problems. And what Mark's illustrated is actually a great technique for, client acquisition, which is almost like a therapist will kind of say, well, tell me more about that. Well, wait, don't. So what's going on there? Like, what are you, can I offer some advice, or can I be helpful there? And just helping people start talking about their problems. And if they start seeing you as this trusted guide who can actually solve it, that's just brilliant. So I want to move ahead in your story a little bit, because knowing your story, you kind of almost then become a victim of your success, because all of a sudden now you got more clients than you can handle. I think you got up to like 1,000 clients or some crazy huge number, and you're working like 80, 90 hours a week, and everyone wants to work with you. And now all these endless referrals are coming in, and you kind of have this moment. I want you to take me through of like, I've got so many clients of so many different areas, and I'm working insane hours. How did you kind of whittle that down to what you call kind of your dream 100 client list, and take me through that process? Because I know that was scary to basically be like, I'm going to essentially, in a polite way, fire 90% of my clients and kind of start with the small few. But I think there's a genius in there. So take us through that part of your story.
This is definitely a be careful what you wish for, because you might get it situation. What I train financial advisors is that there are 3 skills that you have to master. And for people listening out there that are in any kind of a service business, this is going to apply no matter what your business is. But you need to master client acquisition, client conversion, and client service. Okay. So what's client acquisition? You need to get really good at generating leads to people who want to sit down and decide, discuss whether or not it's a good idea to do business with you or not. I call that lead generation or client acquisition. Then there's client conversion. So let's say you're sitting across the table from someone who, frankly, meets your ideal client profile. Client conversion is the skill of do you have the skill to take someone who's a perfect for what you do, and they're already looking for what you do? Can you convert an ideal client, a potential client, into an actual paying client? So you have to master client conversion. And then you have to master client service. And I define that in our industry as, you've got to know how to consistently exceed your client's expectations. So those are the 3 things. So if you're wondering in your head, what happens when you've figured out client acquisition and lead generation, but not client conversion and not client service? Well, what happens is what you just described. I was bringing in new clients every week. I was #1 nationwide in my firm. I went literally from last place to first place, and I was never knocked off that. I was, for years and years and years, I was always the #1 top producer. So what happens when you're good at lead generation but nothing else? You end up like me with 1,242 non-ideal clients, and you're making a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but you're right. I was working 80 hours a week, and this was back in the mid 90s, and we were all of a sudden going to have a baby, and I was like, wow, I guess I'll meet them when they graduate college or something. So I was seriously considering leaving the business. And so I sat down and I kind of mapped all this out in my head. Okay, so I've mastered lead generation. What comes next? Well, I need to get really good at very streamlined way getting potential clients to see that I am what you have always dreamed of. I am the advisor you were hoping was out there, and that's client conversion. So for that, I actually hired a business coach and really streamlined that to the point where in 1 hour, I could create a compelling experience for a potential client. And at the end of that hour, it was obvious to both of us. If this was something that we should be working together, it was obvious to both of us at the end of the hour. If this was going to be a situation after an hour where we shouldn't be working together, that's obvious to both of us at the end of the hour. So it's an in or out situation, but it was such a valuable meeting for the potential client that I realized I could actually charge for that meeting. So I started charging $500 for my initial client interview. I just made sure that it knocked their socks off, and it was valuable to them whether or not we did business together. So that's client conversion. And when I mastered that, now I've got to figure out, what do you do with 1,242 clients? Again, my business coach back at the time, and I think you're reading between the lines, there is a message here. Successful people have coaches. They have someone in their life that tells them the truth and helps them figure these dilemmas out. Solve the problem, as you're saying. So my problem was, okay, now I'm really good at acquiring client lead generation and persuading them to raise their hand and say, Mark, I want to fire my advisor and hire you. So I got real good at that. Now the final piece of the puzzle is, how do I consistently exceed their expectations? And for me, what I did was I just asked clients. I started surveying affluent clients. And what I was pretty sure was not true, because of my experience on Wall Street, was I don't think the financial industry knows what clients want. I think it's just a big sales operation, So I sat down with lots of affluent people and I said, what is it? Like, if you could create the dream financial advisor and the relationship with a financial advisor, and it would be whatever you want it to be, what is that? Like, explain it to me. And I was also asking, and what would you pay the most for? So I was kind of curious, what is it that clients want? And I discovered, John, that it went far deeper than I thought. That what I found when I started looking at the data and the research is, most people actually don't like their financial advisor. They might like them personally, but they're not pleased, or they're not impressed. How about that? And so I immediately started dealing with, what does it need to look like if, rather than someone not being impressed about their financial advisor, what would drive them to just knock their socks off in such a way that they would shout at the rooftops, if you have a significant financial issue and you don't call Mark Little, you're an idiot. And that was the goal. And so it's a long journey. I started hearing clients saying comprehensive financial services. This was back in the late 90s. And I was like, what does that even mean? And it turns out there is no industry definition for that. It means different things to different people. And I found out that it means really different things to the client than it does when an advisor says they offer comprehensive financial services. So long story short, I made it my goal to become the only game in town. That I realized not every client's looking for comprehensive financial services, but I did know this: the ones who are very frustrated because they cannot seem to find what they want. And I boiled it down to 4 client expectations, which is what we train. But that was my goal. I wanted to streamline what I do, in essence, do a whole lot more for a whole lot fewer clients. So first step for me, John, was kind of doing an 80-20 exercise. So I had 1,242 clients. I thought, well, I wonder what the 80-20 is here. Like, if I looked at 80% of the revenue, how many clients would that be? And it was under 100. So less than 100 clients drove 80% of my revenue.
Wow.
So I rolled out this, what I trademarked the term, truly comprehensive financial services. And I described it. I just described what clients had been telling me for 6 months that they wanted. We're going to, and it was these 4 client expectations. And so and this is the scary part. So of the 1,242 clients, when I rolled this out and I said, I'm going to be doing a whole lot more and our fee is going to be a whole lot more, but we're going to deliver on this, and we're going to deliver at a level no other firm is currently delivering. And ended up, there were 17 clients that said, count me in. So I was going from 1,242 clients down to 17. And that was the scary part. But that's the situation. And that worked, because it turned out that if you actually knock the socks off those 17, well, what I learned in my case was those 17 will introduce you to, in my case, 83 more over the next 34 months. So I went from 17 clients up to 100 clients in 34 months. And my revenue at the firm went from 342,000 up to 1.6 million, just by redesigning our services to do a ton for a smaller community of clients.
So less clients, more money. You're preaching the good stuff now. And what did your workload go from? 80, 90 hours a week to what?
Well, it changed dramatically, because we had a baby and I wanted to be home a little bit more. So I shifted to implement this model. I decided I was going to work 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I always had Monday and Friday off. I could help with the baby and this and that. And so I accomplished everything that I just described. I created this client service model and implemented it and built a team to deliver it, and acquired clients to enjoy it in 34 months, working 3 days a week. So
that's phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many good lessons in here for anyone, not just financial advisors, that Mark is sharing. And one of the biggest ones you just shared was asking people, what do you want? Like, what are you unhappy with? And most importantly, what is the most valuable thing? What would you pay the most for? And then I know, knowing you, and you're being very humble, like, you built this incredible, intricate kind of system under the hood where you have, different subject matter experts and team members, and you deliver what you call the comprehensive services through kind of a team of people, which is so smart and enables you to still be the front facing, the main, head honcho of it all, but you've got experts helping you. Man, this is such valuable stuff for anyone, but especially financial advisors. I guess I want to ask, before we run out of time, is there anything we haven't covered that you see going on right now?
The way you described it is exactly right. What do you want? So when I'm acquiring clients, or even now when I'm talking to a financial advisor that's deciding, do I want to make the effort to put together truly comprehensive financial services, because what I've described as a very easy model, and it will it'll radically differentiate you from other financial advisors. So then what's the drawback? Well, it's an easy, simple structure, but it's not effortless. You're going to have to work hard, let's say for 2 or 3 years, to build the structure and acquire the clients. But then after a year or 2 or 3 of nose to the grindstone, putting in the effort required of this model, then you're living on easy street the rest of your life. Now, you said just ask the problem. So I would ask a client, what's your significant financial issue? That's your problem. The question that you can't miss after that is how serious are you about solving this problem? So a client, recently we had a guy, I said, that sounds like a significant financial issue. And what he said was, I had a guy come and offer me some money to buy my company. What do you think I should do? And I go, well, that sounds like a significant financial issue. Scale of 1 to 10, what's the priority on this? You've got a lot going on in your life. How important is this significant financial issue? And he said, scale of 1 to 10, 13. In this situation, he'd never even thought about selling his company at this stage in his life. But I said, okay, well, we have a process for people that are contemplating selling their company. I'd be happy to sit down with you and resolve this if that's something you'd like to do. And he said, yeah. And I said there, I kind of explained the ground rules of this, but the thing that you cannot miss is they have to want it. Like if I'd have said, how high a priority is this to you? And if he just said, medium, low, I mean, I get offers all the time on my company and it's not that big of an issue. It's like, forget about it. That's not a coaching client. That's not a client that a financial advisor could get in there and roll up the sleeves and say, let's resolve this together. You go live your life and your values and I'll handle the money stuff. And I'll handle all of the money stuff. That requires, I look for three things in a client, and these are the same thing that I look in a financial advisor. I'm looking for head smarts, humility, and hunger. And that's straight. I don't know if you know Pat Lencioni. He's the 5 dysfunctions of a team guy, if you've ever read that book. But he talks about this, and that is exactly what I'm looking for in a client or in a financial advisor we're going to be looking for. So head smart, what does that mean? It means that they are very realistic. They understand that they are not on track. Like they're not arrogant about it. They're not self-righteous. And they are smart enough to know this is not working. It's a problem. And they let the truth descend. They realize that part of it is they're the problem. Their mindset's wrong about all of this, their limiting beliefs and everything. And then as far as humility, they're not making excuses. They're taking the blame. They're saying, it's me. And I know that the reason that I'm not on track with my business is because of something that I'm doing or not doing. And then third, hunger, that's the piece that's almost always missing, because it ends up, are you willing to make the effort that what you're telling me is your objective requires? So you want to double the revenue of your financial advisory business. Great. So describe the effort that's going to require. What's your plan? And they're coasting. They're saying, oh, well, I'd like to keep, I only work 25 hours a week. I want to keep doing that and this and that. It's like the hunger is missing. They do not have the adequate resolve required to fix the problem. And so that's why I don't work with most advisors that I end up talking with, but that's fine. They have a plan and they seem to be happy. But if they want to radically improve and get back on track to what they're envisioning as their ideal business, well, then, I just say, well, let's schedule a breakthrough strategy session, what we call a business management assessment. Let's talk about it. And then I make it my goal to see if they can describe their ideal business. I'm looking for head smarts, humility, and hunger. Like, are they basically anguishing and realize that it's going to take a lot of effort to get back on track? And are they willing to do it? And that's a minority of people, John.
Yeah. Well, and it's true, because I found this too in the service business. You really win or lose based on client selection. So, the quality of your life often is dictated by the quality of your clients. So, clients like Mark Little make my life great. There's others that don't make it so great. No, I'm just kidding. I love all my clients, but it's so true. And I like to, what Mark's revealing here is an abundance mindset, both as a financial advisor and as someone that coaches and trains other financial advisors to, acquire clients. Is Mark knows he doesn't need every single financial advisor on earth to want to work with him as a student or for a coaching program or an online course. It's like, I want to pick people that are winners, that are hungry, that are humble, that, have what it takes. And that enables you to be more successful and be more fulfilled. I think that's a great lesson for anyone.
Can I leave one parting shot?
Yeah, of course.
Let's say you're listening to this and it's not particularly relevant to you, other than you love the idea of truly comprehensive financial services. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I've got a financial advisor that I like, and they're very good at something, like maybe they great at financial planning, or maybe they're great at investment management or tax accountant or estate planning lawyer or something like that. But you're thinking, but they don't deliver at that level. Like they're not coordinating all of my financial affairs, and that would be nice. Well, then what do? Something interesting happened over the COVID thing, is that retail clients started coming to our website, which is themarkofmastery.com. And they would contact us and say, I'm not a financial advisor, so, I'm not looking to become one, but I do have a financial advisor. And how do I approach them diplomatically to say, I wish you would elevate your level of service to be more like this, truly comprehensive financial services, which is what we talk about in the Mark of Mastery. And just contact us. We have a little process. If you're out there and you're thinking, oh, I love my advisor, but I wish they did more for me, then go to themarkofmastery.com, click contact us. Just let us know that's the situation. We have a very smooth process to kind of put this on your advisor's table in a way that they don't feel like, that they're being criticized, or that, that they're about to be fired or something, because, clients are the ones that really properly should drive this, John. That if an industry, any industry, is not serving the desires of the client, well, just think about the opportunity that creates for you and me, that we identify this and we are going to be the solution. We are going to be the rare service provider that actually delivers literally everything the client wants. And we're probably the only game in town.
I love that. I love the fact that you have like the actual client saying, I wish my advisor was more like you. Can you help them get there? Like that's a real compliment. I want to talk about that for a second before we finish up. A couple more items. One is exceeding client expectations. Like obviously that's a core bedrock of what you do and what you train, your the financial advisors that work with you and use you as a coach and everything. You train them to consistently exceed client expectations, which of course leads to happy clients, lifetime clients, referrals. Can you give me a couple examples or stories of how you've done that in the past for a client, how you've exceeded an expectation, just so people can kind of get an idea of what that means?
Sure. So it's two tracks. So the goal, first of all, you've got to set the goal. So it's a financial advisor who says out loud, I want to exceed my client's expectations, because most advisors, that never occurs to them. They think they're offering a valuable service, money management, tax, whatever they're doing, and they think the clients are getting what they're paying for, and it just doesn't occur to them to exceed client expectations. But starts with, make that the goal. And then then there's two tracks. There's one is design the services around what clients in large numbers have said, this is what we are frustrated and cannot find. And in our business, it's in four areas. The four client expectations are protection, attention, coordination, transparency. So what is it that millions of multimillionaires out there are begging and screaming for, but they can't seem to find? It's an advisor who's not trying to sell them something, but they're protecting them. It's that they're identifying conflicts of interest and they have the client's back, and they protect the client from things that they should and should not be doing. That's protection. Attention means I want an advisor who's paying close enough attention that if my plan drifts a little bit off track from my goals, that I don't have to call them and I don't have to call my advisor and let them know. No, they're paying attention and they're proactive enough to where they call me and let me know that it's drifted off track, because they've already created recommendations to get me back on track. So protection, attention, coordination. Very few advisors are willing to coordinate all the financial people in a client's life: the tax accountant, the estate planning lawyer, the insurance agents, all these people, So stepping up and offering to coordinate everything under a comprehensive strategy. And then finally, transparency. There are so many hidden fees and expenses and investments that clients really get frustrated not knowing exactly what they're paying in all their financial products and services. So if an advisor will promise all those three and guarantee those, we call that your advisor pact with your clients, your advisor pact pledge: protection, attention, coordination, transparency. There is, I will just challenge you right now, there is no advisor in your community, if you're a financial advisor, who is willing to pledge all four of those things. You might find advisors that'll pledge one or maybe two of those, but never all four. And if you'll pledge all four to the client, well, you've created a structure that will knock their socks off. Okay. And including comprehensive financial services, we distilled it down to a 142-point checklist that we cycle through with every client. So most advisors haven't even really thought about it. There's 142 things on the checklist that I should be going through with every client every year. Yes. Yes. If you want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And so you create a structure to exceed client expectations that you know up front that it should. And then the second is just so painfully obvious, I hate to even mention it, but I have never met a financial advisor who actually does this without us training it. And it is to just ask your client, just say, well, if you have a new client relationship and you're sitting down at the beginning of the relationship and you're making all these promises: protection, attention, coordination, transparency. And then at the end of all that, just go quiet and say, if we're sitting here a year from now and we exceeded all your expectations wildly, what did that look like? And just keep asking that question and make sure each spouse is able to speak to this. Like, we're sitting there a year from now in the meeting. What are we talking about that we did for you? And I call it the expectations conversation. And it sounds so crazy. Like, surely every advisor does that, but they don't. And so what you do with that conversation is, first of all, you have that conversation every year, at least once a year. And you document it for your team so that everybody that's delivering the service to the client, you've got this bullet pointed list. Well, this couple wants boom, bitty, boom, bitty, boom. Here's what they said would exceed their expectations. So it's an awareness thing for the team. And that's pretty much it. That's what we did. And that's what we recommend if the goal is to exceed client expectations.
I love that. I especially love the protection and then the proactive piece, because I think oftentimes you experience that in any industry, but I love the idea of, I'm looking out for you and I'm actively correcting the car before you notice it's in the ditch.
Yeah, I recommend going strong. Like what I've always said on that piece to a potential client is, what if I were to guarantee that you'll never have any financial surprises? And which is exactly what I guarantee.
Right, because you're monitoring everything. So it's
and
not
then
like
they're thinking, oh my gosh, you mean like 3 years ago when I had that $40,000 tax surprise?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's why are you telling my stories? Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm just saying, now you're talking the language of the client.
That's the other key. That's a great one, is putting it into words and phrases the client understands. And you get that by asking them. And they'll tell you.
And the other is just thinking everything from their perspective. Like, you just look at every financial thing that they do that annoys them. And I just took them one at a time. Like, take buying a car, John. Let's say you want to buy it. You need to buy a new car. It's all great, except now you got to schlep into the dealership and deal with all these salespepeople. It's the process that they hate, not the car. And so we made it frictionless. We figure out what car they want. We have a car guy, and rather than go into the dealership, he has these dealerships deliver the car to your driveway. So you drive car number 1 around, and then tomorrow you get a different car. They deliver a different one. And you go through all these different models and makes of car until the client says, I like the one 3 days ago. And you say, okay, fine. And so we have the general manager of the dealership come to the client's home and complete all the paperwork that the financial advisor has already reviewed and filled out for them. So it's just think of all the little touch points in a client's financial life where you could make life that frictionless for the client. And I just think when an advisor says, well, what on the earth could we do to make their financial life easier? I think we're talking about a lack of imagination here. There's
Yeah,
so many things that you could be doing to make your client's financial life easier.
I love it. Well, here's the last one I want to hit on. How do you build trust? Because I feel like a challenge that so many financial advisors I talk to struggle with getting, especially people, even if it's a referral, sometimes there's trust issues of, well, I'm just worried about, I don't really know you well, trusting someone new with my money. I know even if it's a referral, my friend said Mark's great, but I don't know. How do you make someone feel comfortable enough to kind of trust you with their money? How do you do that? Are there certain questions or strategies, that you take in that kind of client acquisition call? Or I guess I'm curious your thoughts on that.
It's really important question because trust in the real world, trust is not something that's just given away. It's earned over time. And so, but this acquiring clients creates a little problem for the client. They've got to trust somebody, either your
Yeah.
firm, or if they're going to hire a financial advisor, they kind of already know up front, I've got to trust somebody. And so they don't typically have a very good process for that. So remember when I said you've got to master client acquisition and lead generation and then client conversion? It's that skill. It's, can you create an experience where they explain their innermost objectives, like what just deep, they go deep and say, here's what I'm trying to achieve financially in a way that I've never told someone outside of our family, and my spouse barely knows how I think about this. But can you create an experience where everything gets out on the table, so much so that I'm going to say 1 out of every 10 times there's tears in the meeting.
Oh,
And so can you create an experience where they let the truth come out? Here's what we're trying to achieve. And then you in essence say, is that on track or off track? And they say, oh, off track. And it's like, okay, so we have a problem. How serious are you about getting that on track? Like, how would you like to be on track to all the stuff you just shared with me? And at that point, John, I don't know how to describe it. I think that's in essence trust training. But I think what takes over for this problem of not trusting is somebody who really gets you and what you're like. Nobody has really gotten to put their finger on the nerve to really figure out what is it that you're trying to achieve here and why is it off track?
mhm.
Like, and they just admit the truth, and then you're the person that shows up understanding that, committing to resolve that. So then it flips back to the client. How serious are you
I
in
love it.
resolving
Yeah.
this? And that skillful situation in the client conversion process kind of shifts it away from, because you can't trust somebody you don't know. It becomes more about, we're arm in arm together on solving this project, this problem.
Yeah, I love that. Just getting real with people, not shying away from the elephant in the room, which is the significant financial problem. Being able to, have a story or demonstrate empathy, that you've dealt with this before. It's not your first rodeo. And then, again, being able to use those phrases like, well, it sounds like what I'm hearing is, it seems to me that, and you're kind of repeating back to the person and validating that pain, like you said, putting your finger on the nerve. They go, yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Man, I can listen to you all day. You need to have a
as
conference. You need
as
to do
opposed
trainings.
to, just not to interrupt, but just as opposed to, what do most financial advisors do? They're pitching.
Pitching.
It's like, I do investment management. Let me tell you how we beat everybody else's returns. Or I do tax planning and we do better tax planning.
Yeah.
It's way deeper than features and benefits. I mean,
Yes.
they're trained. You should be talking benefits. And I'm like, forget all that. You need to be like the only person on earth that understands their problem. That's the piece that's missing.
Your ability to handle people makes you rich. I mean, it's understanding. Yeah, and that's what I really liked about this interview, Mark, is this goes way beyond financial advisory. I think it's true for any service business. I mean, I've learned so much, and I'm like, usually I have a guest on, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of know stuff, and I'm like, man, okay, little, I got to take more notes. Little's killing it. So I love all this stuff. I want people to be able to get more from you. So where should we send people online? Obviously, they can connect with you on LinkedIn, Mark McKenna Little. He's got a great looking profile. I know the guy that wrote it. It looks fabulous. Had to pump my own tires. But where should we send people online? Obviously, financial advisors who want to learn from you, your courses, your coaching, but also even clients who want to introduce their financial advisor to you, and even anyone just looking for more tips. Where should we send them?
Yeah, whether you're a financial advisor or you're a client who wishes your financial advisor would be more thorough and comprehensive, the website is themarkofmastery.com. We've got free courses and tools for financial advisors. You just contact us. To become a member of the Mark of Mastery, a financial advisor can join at no charge. It's free. But we put enough on there to just lay out the principles, and then it's really up to the advisor to decide, am I willing to make the effort to go all the way and deliver at this level? But at themarkofmastery.com, it walks through it. We have free courses and lots of resources for advisors.
Well, Mark, thank you. This has just really been a masterclass in client acquisition, customer service, sales, a non-traditional sales approach, which I love, and which is so helpful because I think everyone is sick and tired of the gurus and the shouting and the spamming. And I think you've laid out what's really a timeless approach to this that is just based on how to handle people and how to talk to people. And I think what I love about it, if you're the financial advisor or anyone else offering the services, then you can do the approach Mark outlines and you don't have to feel sleazy or weird or pitchy. Like you're just trying to help people genuinely. So fantastic work, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.